One of my most anticipated movies for 2025 was, of course, going to be James Gunn's Superman. I find that the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is one of the best trilogies of all time. His version of the Suicide Squad was absolutely incredible, but could he pull off Superman? That was always going to be my question. I never knew that James Gunn could have it in him to pull off a Superman movie, even though he is an excellent writer and director, and specifically this film is kicking off an entire new DC universe. And, well, Superman is the movie that we need right now. It's the comic book movie that I genuinely think we do need right now. It is very comic booky, and it's very awesome. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today I'm discussing Superman. This is, of course, written and directed by James Gunn, and it is the kickoff to the brand new DC universe, which technically had its punt with Creature Commandos, which I thought was a pretty fun time, but this is really the definitive piece for kicking off the DC universe for a majority of people, and I think for the most part, it is a damn good kickoff. And alongside that kickoff, it is an awesome time at the movies specifically, like just to put it right out in the forefront. But this is a review. This is going to be a non-spoiler review. I'm going to try and stay as vague as possible because, for the most part, I will say the trailers did a really good job at hiding certain specific points that are very exciting for fans. And adding on top of that as well, I don't want you to go into this film spoiled at all. I want you to definitely go into this with a clean slate. I'm only going to talk about certain things that I've seen in the trailer and specifically what the film is marketed, but for the most part, you are safe here. And as I said, I thought this movie was awesome. In a way, it is the definitive comic book film that we all need right now. One that is filled with hope, one that just leaves you with a smile, one that gives you goosebumps, one that makes you laugh. Just like all around, this is just a damn good movie and a fun one at that. I have my nitpicks. There's certain thoughts that I have on certain things, but when it comes down to this version of Superman and the world of the DC universe that it definitely kicks off here, I got no complaints there. Those movies that you just want to go to have fun with. It's definitely what James Gunn delivered here. So again, leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like, subscribe button. But if you don't know what this version of Superman is about, well, it's about Superman who must reconcile his alien Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as a reporter Clark Kent. As the embodiment of truth, justice, and the human way, he soon finds himself in a world that views these as old-fashioned. To get my pros right out of the way, let's just start with the performances because that's been like the most talked about piece of this. And just as like a little bit more of a definitive piece, yes, I love Henry Cavill as Superman. He is, for me, the reason that I came back around to loving Superman. I grew up with that character. I love Christopher Reeves as that character. I love the animated series. I love Justice League Unlimited, which, holy hell, this movie in the DC universe is already feeling very much like Justice League Unlimited. We'll talk about that in a second. I was not initially excited for a new Superman. Like, I trust James Gunn, but like Henry Cavill for me was perfect, but I got it. David Corenswet's amazing in this role. He's fantastic. He very much is his own version of Superman. Like, a lot of that comes from the writing. A lot of that comes from the way that he emotes and performs. He's very different from Henry Cavill's, and he's very different for me from Christopher Reeves. He may lean a little bit more towards Christopher Reeves, but I think for the most part, this is a very him Superman. Very different, and I'm okay with that because that's how the comics are. And I like how we now have all three of these defining pieces. And I thought him as Clark Kent was also pretty well for what we got him as. He's definitely more Superman in here than anything else. Alongside this, I also want to say Rachel Brosnahan might be my defining Lois Lane. I thought she was so fantastic in here. In fact, I thought the whole Daily Planet was amazing in here. Every time it jumped back to that subplot, I actually was having a really fun time with that. And each and every one of the characters are casted immensely great in here. But for me, Rachel as Lois Lane was just the cherry on top of it all. And I thought she was amazing in this. And their performance, their chemistry, David and Rachel's, is immaculate. It is perfect. Dare I say, the best chemistry we've gotten between a Clark and a Lois Lane. Might sound blasphemy for some old school fans out there. But man, I grew up with Smallville. I grew up with Christopher Reeve Superman. I get it. but there's something special there, and I can't wait to see that developed more. On top of that, also adding in Nicholas Hoult, for me, also might be my favorite Lex Luthor yet that we've gotten in a live action form. I think the way that Nicholas Hoult just plays this character to such a T is perfection, and specifically in the way that he emotes, the way that he's just so calm and collective at points, so frustrated at the same time. Like, the way that you can just see this Lex flip like a switch was just phenomenal. And he very much is the Batman to the Joker as Superman is to Lex Luthor, and I don't think we've ever really gotten that in live action. I know they've had Lexes and Supermans, but this for me just felt personal and something special that, again, just adds to the whole dynamic of being human and humanity. And that's always been one thing that I've always loved from the comics, is how Lex views Superman as not human. But in reality, in a way, Superman is more human than Lex has ever been. And this film very much develops that and teaches onto those themes and ideas. And again, as I mentioned off the top, this is very much a film that I think we all need right now. And I think it's a film that many people can learn from it with its values and its themes of optimism, hopefulness, and again, being a decent fucking human being. For me, one thing I will say is, like, the supporting cast in here when it comes down to, like, the Justice Gang and some of the other heroes you see in here, I will be flat out honest, really surprised me in here. Like, to the point that I walked out going, I would see a spin-off film of them. Seriously, Nathan Fillion, which, like, the damn haircut as Guy Gardner is just atrocious, but Nathan Fillion's fantastic as Guy Gardner. And, like, to the point where I was like, wow, we're getting awesome Green Lanterns, and this made me more excited for the Green Lantern show that we're getting next year. I cannot wait to see that cast. But just this little snippet, Nathan Fillion did a great job. Bella Merced, great job as Hawk Girl. Not enough material there, but, like, she's badass, so I'm okay with it. I know I'm going to mispronounce this, but Eddie Gathagi, I thought, was incredible as Mr. Terrific. I mean, genuinely enough, I walked away going, I'd watch a damn spinoff movie of him. He was amazing. And I've never really known much about this character, but he has one action sequence in here that is just top notch and probably one of the best sequences in the entire film itself. He was amazing. Like, I just could not get enough of that character. And Anthony Carrigan's Metamorphosis character, really cool as well. Excited to see the usage of him, and I do not think that disappointed. But that's also kind of where it comes down to, is you hear me mentioning all these different characters, all these different things. And that is something about this film, is that there's tons of metahumans. There's a freaking kaiju at one point in this film that you've seen from the trailer. And this film is very comic booky. Like, even more than James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which had a giant killer starfish Starro as the main villain. But this really worked. And I'm okay with that. I like how crazy and insane and comic booky it is, which is going to be a wavelength that's not going to be for everybody. I think if you're a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, such as I am, and James Gunn's version of the Suicide Squad, and I'd even go as far to say, like, previous other versions, you're really going to like this. Like, James Gunn is really hyped up and said the DC universe is a fantasy world, and that this world will be kind of looked at in his vein of Star Wars. Like, there's no Thanos at the end of this world and end of the storyline. It's building up this universe. And that was the big takeaway I took from the very initial start, as the film opens up and it has this awesome kind of credit sequence, which is very simple, but it just, like, straight up just tells you, this is the world we're in. This is the situation. This is where we're at. And as the film progresses and you meet other characters, like such as a character from the Authority, the engineers in here, she's awesome. Then again, Anthony's Metamorphosis, which is way out there. Uses concepts into the DC universe that, like, the Marvel universe shit wouldn't have even touched until now, so many years later. But James Gunn trusts his audience to understand, and it never has to, like, double down and try and explain what these certain sequences are. It expresses, it says what something is, and that's about it. It never has to dive in anymore. And that is risky as a director to take that from, but I really like the comic booky feel of this and the vibe of this universe. And that is something that Creature Commando definitely started, but you definitely see it in Superman in live action. And again, comic booky. If we're looking at live action films as a pure, this is the most comic booky that you've ever felt. And even to the highest degree, maybe the most fantasy that I've ever felt from a comic book film itself. I am okay with that. Is that if that is the vibe we're going with the DC universe, it's different enough from the MCU that it makes me excited, as well as it's different enough from what other franchises are doing as well that it's exciting. On top of that, James Gunn's action in here is top notch for the most part. We'll talk about one sequence in my nitpicks, but I really thought a lot of the action sequences, specifically the flying in here, were just fantastic. And again, it's used with a fish eyes lens. Again, we'll talk about some of my nitpicks in a second, but overall, I felt like I could feel every punch, pull, kick, fly, and it was really awesome to see a lot of Superman's powers. And again, it was really cool how he used all of the characters' powers. Green Lantern, Hawkman, Metamorphosis, Mr. Terrific. Like, they used all their powers into such cool ways and demonstrated them in really awesome ways, alongside making Superman just look like a complete badass for the most part. For me, that is one of the things that I was super excited about, was to see how James Gunn was going to be able to shoot and film the action sequences, and I think he does deliver for the most part on there. The score here is also great. It's obviously a clear love letter and nostalgia to Christopher Reeve's, Richard Donner's Superman, which I thought was great. I loved it, and I'm curious to see how that develops going further. And this is where it kind of gets down to my last piece before we get into my mixed issues with the film. But I do think James Gunn as a writer is the most important part about this movie, and I think his writing here is pretty impeccable. I have some issues with the story that we'll talk about, but when it comes down to its themes, as I mentioned, I thought that was some of the most important, and the jokes here for me did land almost every single time. I think this is overall, the way I would explain this film is that it's very much a crowd pleaser. It is a crowd-pleasing superhero film that doesn't try to do anything super new, but it introduces a new world and brings back Superman into the forefront, which I think is exactly what this film needed to be. Let's dive into my mixed and my nitpicks with this film. Now, first off, my mixed aspects is some of the visual effects. Now, I think for the most part, some of the visual effects in here are pretty solid, perfection, big thumbs up, big 2 thumbs up from me. But there's this whole universe type thing that they deal with that has been in some of the trailers that I found the concept of it works. The visual effects, for the most part, there's an action sequence in this river that I, for the most part, could not tell what the fuck was going on. Even at times I just thought, this could have been a little bit better right here. For me, that was the most disappointing set piece out of them all, was the ending of that. I really just wanted a little bit more from that sequence, and it kind of just fluttered out. It has a lot of cool ideas, but I think the visual effects really hold that sequence back from me understanding what's going on. It's not that it looks bad, I just can't tell what's happening. And I don't know if that's the way it was shot or the visual effects direction, but I think it's a mix of both. Which goes to some of my issues with some of the action. Like I said, for the most part, I thought a lot of it was awesome, but I never felt the impact of what Zack Snyder had done with some of the action, or even some of the set pieces that James Gunn had developed in the Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy. I think this is a little bit more on the weaker side when it comes down to the action. It's a little bit more heartfelt, a little bit less push right inside your face. It definitely has its stakes, and again, there are every sequence, I think, for the most part, besides the one I just mentioned, is fun. I just really wish I would have felt some of the impact in some of the punches. It feels like some of Superman's powers, he held back at times, which made Superman feel a little bit weaker. But I don't know if that's just more on the writing part there. Genuinely think the weakest part about Superman is the story. Now, as I mentioned, I really love its themes and ideas, but this is a very episodic movie where it's for the most part, from what I could tell, it was day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, so on and so forth. And it was basically one of the worst weeks of Superman's life. But I think this film actually needed little context where it would say day 1, day 2, day 3, just showcasing what was going on. And I actually think the film would have worked a little bit better if it was maybe 10 to 20 minutes longer. I know everyone's tired of all these long films, but it felt like I wouldn't have minded getting a little bit more of development between certain characters, a little bit more banter here and there, or maybe just even a little bit more of Clark Kent's. We only got, from my memory, one sequence of him at the Daily Planet, which is a little bit weird in my opinion. That's the thing that I really genuinely wanted to see, were certain things like that. And again, how episodic the story feels is it's there's about 3 subplots going on, one with the Daily Planet, one with Lex Luthor, and of course then one with Superman, and everything kind of going into that direction. But when you get to some of these different stories and these different little things going on, again, it feels TV showish. The kaiju scene, the universe thing I mentioned, building up to the season finale, which is the ending of this film, which absolutely awesome, like a full-on action set piece, but it just felt a little bit weird in the way that it was written. And again, either I wish it was a little bit more organized. I wish the film was either a little bit longer to structure us through these different directions, or just in general, just something there. I still stand by, even with my nitpicks, and I'm nitpicking it because of just how I feel and what I wanted to see from this film and what we've seen in the past from Superman movies, and specifically comic book films. But I still feel that even with those nitpicks, this is such an enjoyable thrill ride and a blockbuster that, again, screams, thank God Superman is back. It's fun. It's optimistic. It's exciting. And again, those nitpicks I have are just things that I would like to see improved into the future. But from what they set up in this DC universe, I want to keep playing around. I want to keep exploring it. I want to see more of this Superman. There's certain things that I don't think, definitely, like, James Gunn pulled back, and like as a director, he's not showcasing all of his little weirdness and quirks and insanity that he usually puts. But that's for the most part and the good part. He's making this a very comic booky fantasy film. And I think that's why it makes Superman the defining film that we kind of need right now. It's a beautiful, poetic, and punk rock film that shapes not only the DCU, but I think what future comic book films should be and actually will end up being. Gunn goes all out in delivering a story on what it means to be human. And again, I think David is truly the next generation Superman. I think Nick is the definitive Lex Luthor. I think Rachel Brosnahan is the definitive Lois Lane. I think their chemistry, Rachel and David's, is amazing. I think the Justice Gang was a big surprise. And I think for the most part, I walked out of this movie with the biggest smile on my face going, damn, I can't wait to watch that again. I had an absolute blast with this movie. Issues aside, I wish the story was a little bit stronger, but its themes and messaging was so strong there that it kind of makes up for it. And as well as I wish the visual effects were a little bit stronger in one sequence, but again, for the most part, it looks awesome. It feels so fantasy-like, and that's what I wanted from my Superman movie. And I damn near love this movie. I love my experience with this movie, and I think a lot of people are going to walk out of this pretty damn excited. Go in open-minded. No, it's not Man of Steel. No, it's not Christopher Reeve's Superman. It's its own damn thing, and I can't wait to see the rest of this DC universe. I know people are going to be like, of course he liked the damn movie, of course, even with my... Yes, but I think this movie is only going to grow on me the more and more I watch it. So with all that said, I'm going to give Superman an A-. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts. And, of course, until next time, stay classy. And look out for my Superman ranking later this week. I should have one out. I didn't do Jurassic last week because I was a little bit exhausted, but I do have a lot of thoughts on the whole Superman universe, so I'm excited to talk there. Thank you so much again, and, of course, stay classy.